Welcome to the Lisa Wexler Show podcast. Think of it like a magazine or a box of chocolates. You never know what you'll get. From politics to pop culture, healthcare to legal issues, it's all here. And my behind-the-wheel chats are personal observations created especially for you on podcast only. Enjoy. Joining us now is Rob Sampson, who is proudly one of the most conservative, a proud conservative Republican member of the Connecticut legislature, and he is now the senior deputy Republican leader. There was a recent article about him that touted his leadership along with Stephen Harding as trying to create a very defined opposition to much of the Connecticut Democrats in our Hartford legislature. I think, Rob Sampson, this might be the first time you're on our show, although I think you're on Paul Pacelli's show pretty often. Is that right, Rob? Hi and welcome.
Good morning, and thank you for having me, Lisa. I have been on with you before, but it's been a long, long time.
It's been a long time.
And I do show up on Paul's show once in a while.
You do. You do. All right, Rob, there's a lot I wanted to get to. I did want to ask you, because I was looking in your own bio, you say that you're very proud of your NRA affiliation. Did you vote against the red flag laws that were passed after Newtown Sandy Hook?
Yes. I don't know that I would call them red flag laws. I mean, they were more about, direct violations of the Second Amendment rights of, law-abiding gun owners in the state.
Well, obviously that's how you see it, right? That's why you voted against it. I'm curious about that because one of the red flag laws, so my work as a broadcaster is also separate from my work as a probate judge. But as a work as a probate judge, I am somebody in our mental hospitals all the time doing commitments. And one of the things that we passed in 2013 was a law that said that if you are conserved, it is a conservator's responsibility to make sure that you do not have access to firearms. And where it's come up in my courtroom, I think it's been, frankly, a good thing in terms of public policy, because very often people that are conserved because they have active mental illness like schizophrenia, which is a scary enough disease that you would not want that person to have access to firearms. And I'm just curious, in the wake of that, is that a law that, if you were looking at it today in 2025, that you would support?
Well, Lisa, I mean, it's a good question, and obviously it's a very delicate balance between protecting the civil liberties and the constitutionally protected rights of the people that I represent versus making sure we provide for public safety by having protections in place. I mean, certainly I was one of the people after the Sandy Hook tragedy talking about mental illness and, maybe drug abuse as factors in a lot of these criminal activities, mass shootings, et cetera. Sometimes it's, hard to predict exactly what the results were, but it's not the kind of thing that the average sane person is engaging in. So I'm with you that, sometimes it might make sense to restrict someone's ability to own or possess a firearm because of their mental health status, but it's definitely a slippery slope, and I'd want to be very careful before we denied anyone their rights.
Yeah, you feel very strongly about gun rights, Rob Sampson. How come? Why?
Well, it's not so much that I feel strongly about gun rights. It's about the right to self-defense. I mean, the Second Amendment exists for a purpose. Our country was founded by people that had to fight off an oppressive government. And the founders of our new nation put that into our Constitution and put it into our Bill of Rights to remind us that people have the right to defend themselves against, one another, if necessary, against nature, if that happens, and also against an oppressive government. And I just believe that, it's one of the founding building blocks of being an American is that natural right to self-defense and to own and possess a firearm. And I just don't think it should be taken away for light causes. Now, certainly, I'm like the first guy to throw the book at somebody if they use a firearm in a legal way. In fact, I think that's one of the problems we have is we do not prosecute criminals. We do not prosecute people that commit crimes with guns nearly enough. And I think that might solve a lot of our problems if we did.
Okay. We're chatting with Rob Sampson. Rob, can you tell us the towns that you represent as a state senator, please?
Oh, certainly. I represent the towns of Southington, Wolcott, Prospect, Cheshire, and I have a small piece of Waterbury.
Okay, cool, cool. All right, so I just want to ask you if you'd heard about something, and we're going to get to other policies. I really want to get to some of the laws in the legislature that are happening right now. Did you happen to see there was a verdict on Friday afternoon? The New Haven Register wrote this up as a verdict that was in a way unexpected, but people thought that the jury adhered to Connecticut's law. So what it was there was a person in his 70s. I think he was 76 at the time, but he's now, no, he was 74 at the time. He's now 78, and he's a lawyer. And he was standing outside his law office near in the Litchfield area, and somebody came up to him, someone named Elliot Bromley, 39 years old, and I guess was attacking him. And he was in fear, and he fired a deadly shot with his own gun and killed this man. He was found guilty by a jury of first-degree manslaughter on Friday. I'm sorry, the person's name was Matthew Bromley, not Elliot Bromley. And the reason he was found guilty was because Connecticut has a very strong law that says if you can run away, you should. And the jury found that this man theoretically should have been able to run away instead of facing somebody who was attacking him and shooting and killing him. And this is being reported in the New Haven Register as highlighting the fact that Connecticut does not have a, quote, stand your ground law, whereas 34 other states do. And some people feeling, as you're reading the article, that this lawyer maybe shouldn't have been convicted, but should have been convicted based on a strict application of Connecticut's law. I'm just wondering if you had any thoughts about the case. If you knew
certainly,
about the case.
yeah. And
did you know about the case? Did you know about it?
I do not know about the case, but I certainly know about the issue. And without knowing the facts of the case, it's very hard to determine whether or not that person could have actually retreated.
Exactly.
But what you're referring to is in our state law that you have a duty to retreat. Amazingly, in Connecticut, Lisa, you have a duty to retreat even in your own home, which is another similar law to stand your ground called the Castle Doctrine, which is the right, obviously, to defend your own premises. I put bills in every year for Castle Doctrine and for Stand Your Ground because I believe you should have the right to defend yourself. Certainly, a court can look at whether or not somebody is in a position to get away without having to use their gun or another weapon, and I think that's useful. But to have a law that's written suggesting that you're guilty unless you can prove that you couldn't retreat, I think is a mistake. And just, following up on our previous conversation, I mean, the laws passed after Sandy Hook, those were not really red flag laws. I mean, they were depriving law-abiding gun owners of the right to own certain size magazines or certain types of firearms, things that I don't think have had any impact on our criminal justice system at all, because naturally you can get these items in other states nearby, and, criminals just generally don't have multi-$1,000 types of firearms that were ultimately banned in that law.
But we have reduced our rate of gun violence since we passed those laws in 2013-14. We very definitely have, Rob Sampson. No question about it.
Well, if that's happened, Lisa, it had absolutely nothing to do with the passage of those laws.
You don't think so?
No, not in the least. And the fact is that when you take and deny law-abiding citizens their right to defend themselves, effectively you're empowering criminals. People that are going to commit acts of crime are going to do it regardless of whether or not you can have a 10-round magazine or a 15-round magazine. I mean, the criminal doesn't care. Can you imagine someone about to go rob a store, sitting in their car, loading their gun and deciding, oh, gee, I better not put more than 10 bullets in here because I'll be violating Connecticut law? I mean, it's just ridiculous. The only people that are doing that are actual law-abiding people, and they're putting themselves in a situation where they're going to be even less capable of defending themselves. Imagine a guy trying to defend his family, grabbing his kids and running up to the second story of their colonial house while there's criminals breaking in the middle of the night. And they'll be armed with God knows what. You're going to tell that guy he's only going to be able to use 10 rounds. I just think these are bad policies. They're not thought through.
Rob Sampson, in terms of what's on the agenda now, Is there a particular bill or something that you are advocating to get passed or something that you would really like to see defeated that you want to talk with us about?
Certainly. One of the things that I think is really, really important that we need to address in the state of Connecticut is housing. Every day we're hearing that there's not enough available housing. The cost of purchasing a home, the cost of renting a home those things have gone up dramatically in the recent years. And the Housing Committee is a committee I serve on as the ranking Republican member, which is kind of like the minority chairman. And it's so frustrating because almost every proposal that comes through there seems to me to be creating or exacerbating the problem because they're effectively telling housing providers that they're going to limit their ability to operate, that they're going to be forced to take certain tenants. They won't have a mechanism to remove them. They won't be able to keep security deposits that are substantial enough. And I just think that the Democrats in Hartford are making a big mistake here because instead of inviting people to provide and offer housing, they're telling them the opposite, which is creating a bigger problem.
I see that this just cause eviction. I just saw a note that came across my desk over the weekend that this thing might actually pass, which shocks me because it is, let's just tell people what it is. So just cause eviction is something where landlords would not be able to kick out tenants at the end of their leases unless they give a reason to do so. In other words, so let's say, and I am, full disclosure, a quote-unquote landlord because I have one condo I bought in 1998 that I hope my parents would live in. They don't live there, so I rent it out. But it's always my insurance policy in case they ever want to come to Connecticut. And anyway, I rent it out. Okay, so technically I'm a landlord. All right. A small landlord, but a landlord. There are many times in the last 20 years that I've owned this place that maybe there have been a noise complaint or there's been something that doesn't rise to the level of me wanting to carry on and evict, but maybe it's not the best tenant to renew. And I get to make that decision. Under this law, there's no leeway. A landlord can't decide to make a decision not to renew with somebody unless they have to go to a judge and show all kind of reason. Rob, is that right? Is that what's going to be passed in Connecticut?
That is right, although I don't agree it's going to get passed. It's my job to stop that bill, and I was able to do so last year. It might be a little harder to stop it this year, but I can promise you I'm going to put in every last ounce of effort I can. We had a hearing, or rather the committee meeting where we voted on that bill was just a few days ago, and myself and my fellow Republican colleagues on the committee, and actually a couple of Democrats who opposed the bill, we extended that meeting, past midnight to show our extreme opposition. It is terrible policy. The fact of the matter is that, it's being advocated for by a lot of inner city tenants who form tenants unions, and they're fighting for more rights for tenants. But I keep reminding these folks, I'm like, if you tell landlords that, first and foremost, you're not going to be able to remove a tenant without an eviction and without one of the very few and very limited specific clauses that the law would allow, then tenants are going to have a tougher time finding a rent because landlords are going to be even that more skeptical of who they rent to. The fact of the matter is this is not going to create more rental opportunities. It's going to create less. And that's, as I started, talking about this topic, I mean, to me, that's what needs to be addressed. We need to make it so tenants have affordable opportunities. And the way to do that is to have more housing providers. So the state should really stop, putting forth legislation that is telegraphing their desire to harm them.
Well, it was strange to me because one of the things that I've been talking about is I think a lot of the Connecticut housing policies are inordinately skewed towards multifamily rentals, which don't create generational wealth, Rob Sampson, and they tend to be very dense and allow people to skirt local zoning, and a lot of places don't feel that the buildings are in character with their neighborhoods. So there's that piece, which comes from a lot of the left that wants to see more housing, and this just cause eviction seems to be counter to that, because you're saying to a professional landlord, not some small-time person like me who owns one condo, but you're saying to a professional landlord, it's going to be more expensive to create those multifamilies in Connecticut. And because it's going to be more expensive, your rents are going to have to be higher. That's what's going to happen.
Absolutely. There is no doubt that if Just Cause passes, there will be fewer rental opportunities in the state. And that's the one thing that the folks who are advocating for the bill cannot seem to get their head around. But they should, because I don't think it's going to benefit anyone.
Rob Sampson, very nice of you to come on. Great to get to know you. Thank you so much for talking about your views. We appreciate it. And good luck this legislative session. We'll be following everything very closely. Thanks for coming on today.
I really appreciate the opportunity, Lisa. Thanks so much. Have me again.
Thank you.